former overweight people, what actually helped you lose weight? When you get a craving for something, instead of telling yourself no, tell yourself later. It's a little psychological trick that seems to work for some reason. The human brain doesn't like never, but it can handle not now just fine. Weird, I know. If you want to exercise more, find an exercise you genuinely enjoy. If you hate running, you'll never be motivated to run. If you want to eat healthier, you have to find healthy foods you enjoy. If you think Greek yogurt is gross, you aren't going to eat it for breakfast instead of a bagel with cream cheese. Don't drink your calories. A soda does absolutely nothing for you besides add unnecessary calories. My personal rule of thumb is that I don't drink anything with calories unless it gets me drunk. All you need to drink is water. Going to echo what other people said and tell you what I did. Calorie reduction. It's simple. There's no fancy diet that works better than any others. The only possible way to lose weight is to eat less than you burn. How I did it. My biggest problem, as with most fat people, is impulse control. I simply could not keep myself in check for 100% of the day. I could be good for most of the day, but at some point I was going to have a moment of weakness and stop at a gas station to get a slutty candy bar or something. Knowing this about myself, I determined the issue was access. If I had access to bad food, I was going to get it. I needed to figure out how to limit my access. The solution: I stopped bringing my check card to work. If I don't have money, I can't buy food. To be clear, I'm not recommending this at all. I would sometimes go almost 24 hours without eating, and it was detrimental to my energy levels and mood. The positives were I lost 100 pounds and saved a ton of money. I just can't in good conscience say someone else should do the same thing. It's just what worked for me. Consistency over intensity, both in terms of diet and exercise. As an exercise example, I kept falling into the trap of trying to reset my workouts to where I'd been at prior to gaining weight. So I'd plan workouts like a 5-mile run or an hour of CrossFit. I'd do the workouts for a couple weeks, but lose steam because they just highlighted how far I'd fallen, left me exhausted, and eroded my willpower. Instead, I started easy, just go for an intentional 1-mile walk every single day. It didn't take long to start upping the distance, adding in hills, picking up the pace, jogging sections, etc. I did that for months before the workouts ever felt intense, by which time I was better prepared both physically and mentally. Same deal with eating. Instead of all salads no nachos, I started with just saying to myself, eat whatever you want, but you are only allowed to use a small plate. Over time I added other things I could consistently commit to, like using MyFitnessPal to roughly track caloric intake, adding 1 day of fasting a week, limiting sugar/booze, etc. Nothing you haven't heard, but seriously, baby steps that you can sustain over time will get you where you want to go eventually. Inconsistent heroics will not. Actually weighing portions out helped me. Turns out I had no idea what a single serving was. I was astounded when I saw how much cereal is in one serving. I must have previously been eating around 2 to 3 servings. I started walking every night after work. I tracked my mileage and listened to podcasts. After a while I started adding a little running. The key was to just stick with it. I've lost around 80 pounds, although I will never know exactly how heavy I really got. I lost a little over 100 pounds in the course of a year, but I'm not sure there was a trick. What you need to do is figure out what caused you to be the weight that you are. For some people it's a food addiction. For some people it's depression and eating for comfort. In my case it was that I didn't really care much about my appearance or health, and spent zero effort on my diet, and didn't exercise much. What I needed was motivation. I had no problem fasting or cutting the amount I eat. I had no problem with eating less pleasant, but more nutritious food, and I didn't have much of a problem getting into a workout routine. I just didn't have motivation to do it, because my health wasn't something I considered much, and I was with a woman who always said she preferred guys that were a little overweight, and had a dad bod. I didn't have anyone else I cared to impress, so I didn't see a point in making the effort. Eventually though I started to gain more weight, and it got to the point where she said, in a very nice way, that I'd probably look better if I lost a bit of weight. Hearing that was instant motivation for me, and so with her in mind I managed to lose quite a bit of weight, around 130 pounds total. By the end of that I was feeling so much better. I no longer was out of breath so easily, and it got to the point where, even without her for motivation, I can't see letting myself gain the weight back. Tell yourself you're thin. I know it sounds ludicrous, but hear me out. You're at a restaurant. You see a lean meat and veg or a creamy pasta. You say to yourself, well, I'm a thin person and thin people eat healthy foods regularly. I'll order the lean meat and veg like other thin people. You see a plate of cookies at work. How many does a thin person take? Maybe just one. You're thin, so obviously you should only take one. Stairs or elevator. Well, thin people take the stairs. You're a thin person, so you take the stairs. Take small portions. You can always get more if you need, but remember, thin people feel full quicker because they eat slowly and eat when they're hungry, not just because it tastes good. So you're eating slow and checking for fullness before getting seconds. Eventually these choices become habit and you never once punish or deprive yourself. You're taking one cookie because thin people, like yourself, only eat one. Not because you're a fatty who needs to lose weight and eat less. It's a great way to change your mindset, change your habits, and not beat yourself up, which can lead to backslides and failed weight loss before too long. Your body matches your thin person habits. Big mental shift was not being afraid to leave food on the plate, especially eating out. My dietitian recommended eating until you're satisfied, not full. One friend also said something that stuck with me when I considered getting seconds on something when I'd eaten enough, but it was so delicious I wanted more. Was in a few hours you won't remember if you ate one or two. It's hard though. I'm starting to gain weight after keeping it off for years because my mental health has deteriorated and food has become a big way of pulling that brain chemical reward. Intermittent fasting. It's not for everyone, but I had a friend, shout out to Yoga Jeff, when I was eating fast food 3 times a day and not exercising, who yes said to eat less and move more, and when I said I couldn't give up soda he said to try the intermittent fasting 5 days a week. I started out still eating poorly, but limiting it to 2p 6p, and I did this for a month. Arby's, McDonald's, Firehouse, all of that. I lost 10 pounds. It made sense, since I went from 3 fatty meals a day to 1 or 2. Then I started drinking diet soda and lost another 5 lbs. Then Jeff suggested I start making the most of my 4 hours with healthy options. I went from Big Macs to Blue Apron and back to Panera. I started choosing healthier meals. It's not always perfect, and Lord knows I'm not bikini ready, but I went from XXXL to XL in a month. I had to pull over and use the restroom at a grocery store on the way home every day or I would get sick. That stopped immediately. My favorite go-to is pan-fried salmon and pan-fried Brussels sprouts. I still love soda, but I do mostly 0 sugar these days, which I realize is still bad, but I'm doing a lot better than I was. Within 6 months I went from having to buy my bras at Lane Bryant to finally being able to buy a bra at Victoria's Secret. I know they are owned by the same company, and another tip: get a bra that fits. It makes all the difference in your body and your self-esteem. Get measured for one. Finding a sustainable routine and diet seems to be best for long-term weight loss and keeping it off. Cutting out too much at once and going extremely hard at the gym can work, but for someone trying to get on their feet and become healthy, it can be unsustainable and cause you to fall back into old habits. Weight loss and getting healthy takes time and patience. I'd start by finding out an estimate of your calories burnt in a day, or TDEE. Total daily energy expenditure. There are a few good calculators online for this, and shoot for a caloric intake lower than that, but not so low that you're uncomfortable, and start coming up with an exercise routine to supplement. Even if it's just walking in the evenings, it's still getting you up and going. I was almost 300. I'm now like 210-ish. I did 1 meal a day for a few months. Not the best way to go about it, but it worked. I've kept the weight off. Cause I don't feel I need to eat as much. I drink probably not enough water, but when I do drink, it's either water or tea. Once in a while I get a soda. No exercise, but I'm hoping, after visiting the spine specialist, that I'll be able to do something. We shall see. I stopped viewing exercise and eating well as a chore that warranted a reward, which typically meant snack/unhealthy food. I started viewing snacks and unhealthy foods as a 45-minute walk or a guac with the burrito now and no mixed drink/beer on date night. Contextualizing it that way helped me make better judgment calls versus immediately undoing any progress. Also, Werther's Originals. Zero nutritional value, but tasty, and they keep me from eating something for like 30 minutes. When I got cravings, a big glass of water and a Werther's would cost me 25 calories, but spare me an extra 75 because rather than a granola bar to tide me over for dinner, I'd be content with a Werther and water. Crack Coke. The crack curbs your appetite and takes all your money. Eventually you lose your teeth, which makes it harder to eat as well. The weight losses because Coke constipates people. Constipated people don't eat, so they waste away. It's why detoxing Coke uses their clothes. Losing the Coke stops the constipation, so everything lets go. So yeah, Coke or crack are guaranteed to help you lose weight. Some of the other side effects may be undesirable. Your mileage may vary. I know a guy whose father said would detox him. He locked him in a windowless room in the basement with 2 buckets. One bucket was full of drinking water. The other bucket was his toilet. He was in there for 8 days and nights. He said that he was in agony and that he hallucinated to the point where he swears that he saw the face of God. That was a couple of years ago, and he hasn't touched it since. Oh, yeah, he's put on a bit of weight too.